August 18, the U.S. government made different announcements referred to Venezuela, important ones. The first is that they raise a reward that they have on Nicolas Maduro's head, which is the president of Venezuela, for $25 million for the capture. So it's like the old West movies when you put a bounty in the head of someone. So that's the first issue. That then that same week they stated officially that they created this new drug cartel that doesn't exist before. It's the first time that they put they talk about the cartel of soles uh, drug cartel, and they said that Nicolas Maduro is the head of this new cartel, and they said that this cartel is the responsible for most of the fentanyl that is going at this moment into the United States. And the third issue that the U.S. government stated in that week is that they said that mm, that they authorized the U.S. military force to go against a series of different cartels in the region. They said the U.S. military is authorized in order to mobilize their forces against these drug cartels. So since that week, it was the point of the start of this new uh, phase of aggression against Venezuela. I think that, as you maybe could know, since the beginning of the Bolivarian Revolution in 1999, the United States has had different phases of aggression against Venezuela. Uh, we're always against Hugo Chavez. I think that maybe in order to mention some issues about that background of aggressions, in 2002 there was coup d'etat against Venezuelan government, against Hugo Chavez. After 10 years, it was like this thing that they call declassification of some files in the U.S. government intelligence, where they actually recognize that they have vinculations with the coup d'état, and that actually the U.S. embassy was knows about the coup d'état before it happened and was part of the meetings and the organization. Maybe one of the most important moments that like um, it's like a mark in the storyline of Venezuela was after 9/11, when the US start this campaign first in Afghanistan, this military campaign in Afghanistan, looking for Al Qaeda and Osama bin Laden. They were first in Afghanistan, and with the time they go to Iraq. But in the first round in Afghanistan, there was a series of bombs, and they were bombing civilian populations. So at that moment in 2001, Hugo Chavez stayed a public position against U.S. imperialist military policies. From that moment on, he denounced the U.S. as an imperialist government. He that he showed the pictures of the kids dead by this bombing, and he said, "We are against terrorism, but this is not the way." And from that moment on, it was like a key point of the starting of an escalate of aggressions against Venezuela. After that, there were several attempts of coup d'etat supported by the United States, also different promoted by the United States. Uh, But of course, the most important moment of this escalate started in 2015 publicly when the United States state this executive order where they classify Venezuela as an unusual threat to the national security. Yes, what I was mentioning is that from that key point from this statement of Venezuela against imperialism, then there come the coup d'état against Chavez, and then 2 years since that, it started a process where Venezuela makes like a public statement that we are a Bolivarian revolution against imperialism. So from that point, it started a series of different kind of escalate of aggressions. But maybe the most important one was, I mean, from this recent phase, it started in 2015 with a first executive order that declares the Venezuelan government as a unusual and extraordinary threat, I'm quoting, for the national security of the United States. So from that point, it starts a series of different executive orders that actually at this moment are something like 1,300 different executive orders from the United States against Venezuela. Most of them center in decreasing the national income. So they are about to forbid anyone to make any kind of business relation with Venezuelan government and also with some Venezuelan representatives. Uh, Also, it makes different, it forbids the possibility of the different financial institutions to make business with Venezuela. So from that moment, all the assets of Venezuela in different countries were freeze or frost. I think that the most important one, or I mean, well, one of the more recognized is like, for example, in the UK, Venezuela has this gold reserve about something like $900 million, and they were frost those assets. Then you have the example of the oil industry of Venezuela have a special branch in the United States, which is called Citgo. Citgo has been also confiscated for the US government. And then you have different assets in different countries that have been froze since that point. So basically, Venezuela is not able to sell anything, especially oil, to different countries because that country could be submitted to the so-called sanctions from the U.S. And also, Venezuela can buy any different kind of goods from any country because that country could be submitted to U.S. sanctions, and also can make any transactions, financial transactions in the international system, because those financial institutions could be submitted to the sanctions. So this is an important issue. I've mentioned it before, even in our forum, but it's like an important background because it basically demolished the national income in Venezuela. Officially, the government of Venezuela have stated that in 2019 and 2020, the national oil income was about 1% of what we had before the sanctions. Specifically, the number is in 2013, the national income was about 56 billions of dollars. the national income of Venezuela. And then in 2019 and 2020, the national income was just about 700 millions or 900 millions in those 2 years. So it's like 1% of the previous income that we had. So that's what defines a blockade against Venezuela, because it has made this siege state in order to guarantee and overthrow a change of regime in Venezuela, political change in Venezuela. That's the first issue. Then you have these different moments in the last 10 years where in 2019 Venezuela, the US government make this attempt of establish a parallel government. They said, well, the person that was elected in the National Assembly in previous years now is the new president of Venezuela. So that was a period of this attempt to establish a parallel government, which was related to different actions. In 2020, they say this, how do we call, like paramilitary incursions in Venezuela. They were like a group of different mercenaries that was captured by the Venezuelan military forces that were trying to intrude in Venezuela in 2020 at the very first beginning of the year. Also in 2018, there was an attempt of killing Maduro in a public activity. It was a military activity where it was prepared that some drones with bombs blow, and they could kill the whole leadership of Bolivarian revolution. Fortunately, it was repelled, that attack. The drones weren't able to go to the place where Maduro were, but it was very close. So that was a public situation. And then also in the beginning of the 2019, it was this pressure in order to enter to Venezuela with what they call like humanity aid, but actually it was demonstrated that were like a convoys with guns and with different people that was trained from Colombia in order to attack and enter violently from Colombia border. So that's some kind of little background of the different moments of the aggression in the past years. And then we go to these last attacks. This escalate is the most important that we have had so far. Actually, is the most important that we had in this century. Since these statements that I mentioned in the recent August, it started a process of mobilization of different Navy ships from the US. At this moment, we have in the Venezuelan border in the Caribbean Sea, we have 8 different Navy ships from the US military force. Publicly, so far we know, these different 8 Navy ships have a capacity accumulated between the 8 of them of 1,200 missile launching that can be like, like water to land or water to water. These are 1,000 missiles that could reach any target in Venezuela territory, because they are in the Caribbean. Also, the last week, the U.S. government has announced the reinstating an important military base in Puerto Rico in order to have aerial support, and they have been mobilizing different military airplanes to this base in order to have the possibility to mobilize those military airplanes into Venezuela if it was necessary. Oh, and one of the Navy ships that has been mobilized into the Caribbean Sea, it's a submarine, which is a nuclear power submarine. So that's basically, the fact situation. What has been happening in the last weeks is that we have seen Trump making these press conferences where he has shown some weird images, some footage, video footage of some bombings into little ships, like I don't know how you call the little ones, like for fishermen. Uh, he publicly has announced the bombing of three different little ships in the fishermen ships in the Caribbean. He has showed this footage, but that footage doesn't refer exactly where have happened, who was the person that they have bombed there. But they publicly have has basically said that they have murdered different fishermen, of people in these navies. From the Venezuelan government, it hasn't been possible to identify to who belong these ships, who was there. It's impossible to know what's that. So from that point of view, the what we have seen from the public, the political organizations, but also from the government, is that we are facing like an hybrid situation right now. People from different countries call us and said, well, what's going on? Are you being attacked? What's happening? So it's a complicated situation because actually we could be attacked any moment. That's an imminent threat that's actually going on. We have, when you have eight military navy ships in your border, of course you can be attacked at any moment. And when you have Trump at the head of this imperialist government, of course it could happen anytime. But at the same time, what we have seen is that we are in a phase of psychological warfare against Venezuela. And not only Venezuela, it's like an international operation, because when you see the social networks during the last weeks, you can be basically convinced that there is starting a process of attack into Venezuela from the US. Maybe when you see the social networks, you can say that they are attacking a drug cartel in Venezuela. The new the new speech, the new narration guideline that you have from the United States, Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, has mentioned that they don't have that they have this switch of situation, because so far they call that this is an illegal government regime, but in the last weeks he has said it's not longer an illegal regime, it's just a terrorist narco trafficking organization, a criminal organization, basically. So that's very dangerous, because this classification opened the possibility for the United States to violate any international laws. Of course, that's not a big issue because they have done it any different military campaign that they have promoted in this century. So it's not a big issue, but it's important because it's about the possibility that they have in order to mobilize resources to attack Venezuela. When I was talking about this fact about the imminent threat against Venezuela, I was mentioning the psychological warfare. It's important to know that in the last weeks we have seen a lot of different fake news refer to Venezuela. Like for example, this video footage that I mentioned that Donald Trump has shown. We think that most of them are some fake news because we don't know if there were actually trafficking drugs. We don't know if that was in national waters. We don't know anything. We just know that he murdered some people over there, and they stated publicly. But they have this massive control of the international media, where they can say anything, and people will hear them, but people won't hear us. So 3 days ago, YouTube canceled the Nicolas Maduro channel, which was one of the medias that we have in order to promote what we are saying. Nicolas Maduro has been doing these international press conferences in order to talk about what's going on to the international press media, but then YouTube canceled that channel. And of course, it's about this uh, cancellation process that they have been promoting against Venezuela in the last years. What I could mention now is that what we think is that from the military point of view, the United States could mobilize forces very easily, but we can, of course, the worst have some cost. You have to pay for this military mobilization. The different the level of military mobilization that they had so far in Venezuela is not enough in order to execute a classical military invasion in Venezuela. That military force, it's important, but they won't defeat the, let's say military Venezuelan forces with that capacity that they have there. Of course, they have it over there and they can mobilize it, but they haven't mobilized it yet. The military force that they have there, as we can analyze, can allow them to make different stuff. On the one hand, they could be like logistical support for any different kind of attack forces in Venezuela, mercenary forces, inner forces, some attempt of coup d'etat, internal coup d'etat. So it's kind of an scenario like, for example, I don't know if you remember in Libya, this they didn't attack directly. They were promoting these different mercenary groups that were, of course, supported by the United States, but were not military forces from the United States. So we think that they can try to promote that kind of aggression and to bring logistical support to these paramilitary forces. The other scenario is the one that they are leading so far, that is to establish a line of attack with any embarkation, with any navy that could move in the Caribbean front of Venezuela. That, of course, is a measure in order to uh, weak, to weaken the possibilities of international trade from Venezuela, because of course any oil tanker that could go over there, it's under the threat of a possible attack. and any other trade navy ship that you can have is threatened um, by this deepening of the blockade, because it's in a physical phase of the blockade. So far, they have sanctions, but at this moment, they have a physical blockade with military navy ships. And the other thing is that we don't know where is going, what's the direction that they are going toward with these different attacks of little embarkations in our border. Uh, we think that is part of this psychological warfare, but at the same time, is what we call. I don't know if you are familiar with this term from Colombia. We know it here from Colombia, which is the false positive they call, which is a strategy that they promote in the warfare against in the armed conflict in Colombia in the last decades. They has promoted this strategy from the formal military, that in order to attack some different points of the guerrilla in some places, they fabricate an operation like an attack against the military forces, and then they produce that, and they said they attack us. We had to repel them. I mean, I will put it in an example. What they do in Colombia is that they attack civilian population, and then they change the clothes, and they put it military clothes and arms in their hands, and they said it was a military territory, and we had to attack it in order to prevent that they attack us. That's what we call a false positive, which is basically the fabrication of an scenario that can give you the base argument for an attack. That's the reason that in the recent weeks we have been talking here in different experiences that we have in that manner. For example, in previous to the Cuban Revolution, it started a process of confrontation from the United States against Spain. That was in the past century. It was related with the blowing of a U.S. embarkation. I don't remember so far the name of that embarkation, but is this fabrication of a situation in order to promote a military campaign. So that's what we are afraid of now, that could be happening with this phase of the aggression. From the point of view of the Venezuelan government, there has been two public actions, two important public actions. One of them is that the Venezuelan government has called to the population in order to voluntary enlistment in the military forces, in the people's militia, in order to prepare for any aggression, military aggression against Venezuela. So in the last weeks, we have had this process of voluntary enlistment in the people's militia, and so far we have something like the last number that I heard. It's something like 11 million of people that has been enlisted in the people's militia to confront any aggression against Venezuela. So basically, it has been a patriotical journey of all the population demonstrating the rejection that we feel against the U.S. attempt of imperialist attack. I can say that in the streets of Venezuela, we are basically normal, natural life going on. Mariana is right now in her work, and she can say that the whole street is normal, everyone is doing their life as always, but you can have this tension. Everybody knows about this imminent threat. Of course, most of the population is against this threat. Um, and the political, digamos, let's say, the most organized sector of our population is organizing from the communes in order to confront or to prepare, maybe not to confront, to prepare to prevent any possible aggression against Venezuela. Of course, it has like race, patriotical spirit, anti-imperialist spirit in the whole, let's say, the whole grassroots in Venezuela at this moment. The other public response from the Venezuelan government has been in the public arena. They has been making this press conference in order to inform which one is the situation, in order to warn the international community for this aggression. The CELAC has made a public statement against this threat in the Caribbean. Also, the non-aligned movement has also made a statement against this. And in the international arena, we have been trying to promote this rejection against this military threat in Venezuelan border. Um, and Nicolas Maduro has been promoting this idea that we need to dialogue. Recently, he sent a letter to Trump where he tried to tell him the situation, the way it's going on. That's an important mark to make some comment to make about it. That is that so far the Venezuelan government has been promoting the thesis that this all aggression against Venezuela has been primarily promoted by Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, which is uh, a key asset of the whole sectors of the Cuban anti-revolutionary uh, bases in the U.S. I mean, basically, he responds to the most fundamentalist and anti-contra-revolutionary different political bases in the U.S. So one of the things that we have been promoting as a thesis is that maybe Marco Rubio is trying to promote the war as the military attack against Venezuela as a possibility for a change of regime. So far, Nicolas Maduro has been trying to promote this dialogue channel with Trump in order to say that's not true. We are not a threat. You're pointing the things in a wrong direction. Uh, the last thing that I could mention about this whole resume that I was making is that when you see the numbers of how the drug trading works in our region, in Latin America, the 80% of the drug trafficking occurs in the Ocean Pacific. It's not by the Caribbean Sea. And Venezuela is not a producer of drug and neither an important provider. So here in Venezuela are not important drug cartel of trafficking of drugs. So it's basically an invention. This idea that you have a cartel, an important cartel here in Venezuela, is just a delusion. It's a living proof or how manipulated can be the media, the international media, and how you can state a situation no matter if it makes no sense. Uh, so basically, Actually, the most important operation happened from drugs, happened from Colombia, Ecuador, and sadly, in Mexico, of course, there is an important part of this trafficking network. Venezuela is at the most one of the places of, how do we call that? It's like an escalation place. It's like some place where the drug comes and goes, but it actually not an important amount of the drug that is going into the United States. That of course it's the main consumer in the whole region of fentanyl and different kind of drugs. So it's said that they use this kind of that they have the possibility to fabricate these nonsense arguments in order to promote an aggression against one of the countries. We think that on the one hand, the Venezuelan government is not good for the United States for different reasons. First, the oil control. They don't have control of the oil in Venezuela, and that's a thing that um, it's a problem for them logistically for any kind of different business and any kind for different capital circuits in this region and globally. Venezuela is one of the most important oil reserves in the world. So to control the oil in Venezuela is one of the most important things for the U.S. possibility to guarantee, to try to uh, reaccommodate their global hegemony. That's one of the important issues. The second issue is that Venezuela has promoted a non-aligned position and a non-aligned international articulation. In our region, you have ALBA that has been promoted for Venezuela. Even CELAC has been promoted by Venezuela. This whole Venezuela is one of the pioneers in this relation building with Russia, with China, with Iran. I mean, with different non-aligned and possible emerging countries. That's also an important threat for the United States. And of course, Venezuela is socialist. Venezuela has declared in Latin America as an anti-imperialist process, anti-colonialist process, anti-capitalist process, and also socialist process. And that's maybe not the main issue against Venezuela, but of course, it's important when you see that recently they have been trying to overthrow or to make political changes in the region. Like, for example, force Ecuador. Ecuador was one of these governments that promoted this Bolivarian alternative, but also promoted the necessity of a change, a constituent process in order to change the political laws, the political agreements in the country. Then you have recently Bolivia. They have achieved this possibility of change, political change in Bolivia. Sadly, we will have in October a new right government in Bolivia. And we think that when you see that paramount, you say, well, the first threats in Latin America are Venezuela and Cuba, are the two socialist countries in the region, and of course, both under sanctions, under blockade, and they have this massive aggression. I think that maybe United States could be seeing the possibility to overthrow Venezuela, Cuba, but also that could be the possibility to reorganize, to recompose their their control, their hegemony in this region, because since the beginning of this century, there has been a change of tide in Latin America. You start a process of different mobilizations with progressive and leftist process and governments. So basically, they have had a disorganization of the whole backyard in the in this 20th century. So at this moment, maybe the United States is seeing the possibility to reestablish the order in the backyard, as they call us historically. So maybe it's a possibility to restate the Monroe Doctrine of the United States in order to guarantee their hegemony in Latin America. We have this thesis that they have been, we thought that maybe when Trump, if Trump could be elected in the United States 2 years ago, we said, well, maybe Trump could finish a little the conflicts in Russia and Ukraine and also in the Middle East, and they will come to Latin America. We didn't want that happen, but so far what we are seeing is that maybe that what is going on, Trump is aligning over here in order to guarantee oil control in this area to then go for any other kind of conflicts. Maybe the conflict Israel-Iran could be an strategical conflict for the one the U.S. need to guarantee oil control in this area in order to have the possibility for an upcoming conflict to recompose the global hegemony.
So, Hernan, is the military in Venezuela in a good position to support the current government? Because in many other places, then the problem is that the military may come and then stage a coup d'etat. But then in Venezuela, it seems that the military has been aligned with the government.
That's an important issue in the Bolivarian process, which is, I think that maybe if you compare in our region, where you have this change, this political change, this political transformation in the region, like for example, Ecuador or Bolivia at the beginning of the century, and then Venezuela, the three of us has a political constituent process, which was a change of national constitution in order to change the rules of the game, in order to refundation, a political refundation. But you have at least two differences between the three of us that are particularities in Venezuela. The first one is that Venezuela, because the three of us has promoted this new national control from the state of the national income, basically or mainly oil-based income. And then in order to redistribute it more fairly, to invest in social aspects and also in the development of infrastructure in the whole country, also about democratization. You have different ways of redistribution that are pointing into that. That's a common aspect between the three of us, but Venezuela is the only one that has built this alternative way of redistribution, which is about people's organization as a subject of directly exercise the redistribution. That's what you see in the communal councils and the communes that we have discussed so far. So you have a recent history in Venezuela of maybe almost 20 years of these experiences of communities, community management, but then community self-government system, and you have all these experiences that is a new way of redistribution. That's one of the differences. And the other difference is specifically in the military aspect, because Hugo Chavez well, I have to remind that Hugo Chavez came from the military background. Actually, he was a leftist military background, but also he promoted a left coup d'état in the 90s. So he knew about the military composition, and he worked that specific sector. Hugo Chavez promoted this uh, change in the doctrine, in the military doctrine, and he proposed we need to put the Bolivarian doctrine in the center of the military statement, the military state sector. And he promoted different reforms. One of them is that he proposed that we have to cut ties with the US imperialist politics. In Venezuela, as in Bolivia before, in Colombia, in Ecuador, in the whole region, it's really common that we have uh, military bases in the national soil. In Colombia, you have something like 5 of them, maybe. I don't know if they have changed that situation, but they have 5 military bases. In the case of Venezuela, we didn't have military bases, but yes, you have military office in the different military national installations. Then you have this this subtle way of controlling the military policies. So Hugo Chavez sent them away, sent them home. They said, we finish with any cooperation agreement that we have so far. And also, he promoted this idea that our doctrine, our conception of the military forces has to be more about defense and of the national sovereignty and independence. And that could seems like really simple, but it's actually about an important switch in the conception of the military sector. In the whole region, the US has promoted a doctrine which is about the national security. And the national security is it's a global doctrine. It's like some kind of free market doctrine, but applied to the military forces, where you have the main branch in the US and all the different military forces in the region were like some kind of derivated branches that all together they fulfill this idea of the security of the region. That's in order to make a long short story, is not that's the doctrine that they have promoted in our region. That's the reason that you have a Chilean army forces or Colombian army forces really dependent on the United States because they are the ones that build the concept and the doctrine. In Venezuela, we have promoted, Hugo Chavez promoted an independent doctrine, change that doctrine. He says, we are about the defense of sovereignty. The other issue is that Chavez promote this idea that in this new conception of defense of sovereignty and independence, the, the main task of the army forces, it's about to help the people, to guarantee the conditions of well-living in the population. So, for example, in 2003, when I started the process of the educational programs, national educational programs, the military forces has a task. They have a logistical task. And they said the military forces doesn't have this idea to mobilize tanks and to mobilize guns. They need to guarantee the logistical mobilization of the educational equipment. They need to move the teachers, they need to move the books, they need to move the TVs, the whole different equipment that you need in order to guarantee that mission. And it happened also with the health programs. It also happened with the infrastructure programs. So basically, he started to make this vinculation between the military forces and the national society. They start the process of integration and to guarantee this building of ideology in the military forces, that the military forces has the duty to serve to the people. And in order to serve to the people, they need to defend the country, but also to guarantee the national conditions of living. So that's a continuous process of transformation that Hugo Chavez promoted in the military bases in Venezuela. I think that at this time you have a military thought in Venezuela of people who think that they are part of the people, that they have to serve, that they have a social duty to the national, well, to our country. People who believes in our political constitution and in the national independence. Of course, the United States is trying to find for a bridge, is trying to find for a medium or high rank officers that they can buy and try to promote a coup d'etat. But so far, it has been difficult because at the same time, as I said, I think that one of the strong points that we have in Bolivarian Revolution, I have to remember that Hugo Chavez built a revolutionary movement in the 80s that was a mixture between military people and civilian people. So we have a lot of left people that has grown in the insurgency, in the process of organized to take the power. So they know about it. Nicolas Maduro has been part of that school, so they know about what does it mean to create the conditions for a coup d'état, and they work over there in order to prevent those possible scenarios. So far, uh, the public statement of the military forces are in defense of the constitution, defense of the sovereignty, defense of the independence, and of course they have rejected and condemned all the different actions of aggression from the United States. Basically, the whole aggression has promoted more unification in that matter, in also the civilian, but also the military sector. This past weekend, we have a national mobilization that was called something like the military forces goes to the commune. So the whole military headquarters moved to the communes in order to discuss with the communal assemblies. They were saying, we are here to serve you. We have to organize the resistance here in the 5,000 communes in the whole country. I can share some images with you because it was a really nice exercise that we have this past weekend.
So the question is to follow that about the U.S. The possibility of U.S. infiltration into the army and the opposition having some support within the military to stage a coup d'état. So you think that possibility is quite small, is it?
At this moment, it's a really small possibility. As I said before, since we here are dedicated to May the revolution, and the whole process of preparation of that was about to study and organize insurgents movement. That's our experience. At the same time, you have the United States, which experience is about to promote coup d'etat, it's about to promote the war, it's about to promote military and hybrid different kind of attacks. So we have no doubts about that they have been promoted the possibility of a coup d'etat in Venezuela, but so far it looks pretty weak, and especially this escalate of aggression in the last weeks makes even more difficult because uh, it's really unpopular to go there or to go over there because actually when you see the Trump politics against Venezuela in the recent months he has been attacking our migrants in the US and he has said that they are criminals and they are insane people. He has said the worst things about our people. So and then he promoted this mobilization of military forces against Venezuela. And I'm pretty sure that people who could be against Venezuelan government doesn't like that. Doesn't like that. They don't. They could be against Venezuelan government, but they can agree with Trump attacking our migrants or trying to threat us with military forces or military invasion. That's the last thing that anyone could want for our country. And I mentioned that because that's about the public opinion, but also could be about the possibilities of a medium or high rank officer in the Bolivarian military forces.
My last question about this part is, how has the opposition responded to these U.S. threats? Are they compelled to make patriotic statements, or do they somehow tend to remain quiet? I mean, how is the opposition within Venezuela and of course outside Venezuela?
Right opposition here in Venezuela since the beginning of the revolution, and they have had different peaks on the capacities of mobilization uh, and I mean the public support. You have different moments in the political opposition, in the right opposition in Venezuela. Uh, so far, maybe since the blockade, they have started to grow a little because the the decrease in the national conditions, of course, has been capitalized for different opposition sectors. But instead of that, they hadn't been able to promote democratic change in Venezuela. What I'm telling about is that instead of the whole generated situation for the blockade, the right opposition hasn't been able to have the majority to change the political situation. And that's something that has generated like some kind of breakthrough the national right opposition, like in two different ways. The first one is the more traditional right parties has been like aligning into a national policy where they have been like going into a ground of minimum consensus with the Bolivarian revolution because it's like, well, we have common interests. We need to guarantee better conditions for the country. So this consensus is about peace. It's about social well-being. It's about economic recuperation. It's about, of course, to finish the blockade framework because we all agree that it's not possible to recover the national conditions with the sanctions. So this is a sector of the opposition that has been more about to have common interests to recover the national situation. And the other sector of opposition is the most US aligned sector, which is more about sanctions, it's about military invasion, it's about it's really sad. It's about an imperial fascist position. And I'm not being rhetorical about it. It's basically explicit. This sector of the right opposition, they are, well, in the last years they have moved from Venezuela. They said that they have been exiled. They went because they want to, and now they are, some of them has political positions, especially in Miami, in New York, and in Texas. Those are the most important arenas for right political assets in the U.S. Actually, you can see that in the White House, you have some Venezuelan political assets that are part of the Trump administration. And all this sector has been promoting sanctions from the beginning and has been promoted all these things that I mentioned you before about this escalate process in the last 10 years has been mainly promoted by this sector. And you have in the leadership of that, you have Maria Corina Machado, which is it's unbelievable. It's Maria Corina Machado is one of the literally daughter of the Venezuelan oligarchy. They are they have the ownership of the most important industries in this country, and he is absolutely U.S. aligned in all these their positions. You can look that you can look for the public positions that she has stated, and she has said that she is responsible for that mobilization of military forces into Venezuela. She publicly promoted. She publicly says that she's part of it and she's promoting it, and she's actually trying to sell the possibility that could be something like a political campaign. She's trying to talk to some political basis that could see that like a good thing. As I mentioned before, the Venezuelan sector that could be uh, uh, agreeing with this possibility of military aggression is really, really low. So this expression talks about a political right sector that is fascist, that is imperialist, and they don't care. Uh, and they know that that's not popular and it has no big support, but they don't care. They are okay with what they need is the U.S. support, and of course they are trying to build a fascist political basis that support that and could be uh, that could think that that's the possibility of future for Venezuela. Fortunately, they haven't achieved that so far. I think that one of the most important things for Venezuela is that we have been able to defeat that as an option the last year in the presidential elections. Because if we won, if we wouldn't be able to defeat that, we will have something even more terrible than what's going on right now in Argentina. What's going on at this moment in Argentina is terrible. We have like all demolishing the social conquers from the 20th century, from the different working sectors. You have been demolishing the social security, the workers' rights. You have been demolishing everything that you have could been able to achieve in the last century in the region, specifically in that country. So it's really, really sad. And in that particular situation, you have an important public support. There is people who vote for him. There are people that still could vote again for him. And that's maybe one of the important differences here in Venezuela. Because as I mentioned some minutes ago, we know that it has been a decrease in the public support of the Bolivarian Revolution because of the blockade, because of the sanctions, because it has diminished the well-living conditions for the people. And one of the consequences of that, or one of the incomes, is the decreasing in the public support. But still, we have the majority support, and that's an important issue because it's not only about revolutionary support or Bolivarian support. It's anti-fascist support. It's anti-imperialist support. It's nationalist support. It's people who is thinking in the future. What I'm trying to say in here is that one of the things that we are worried is the recomposition of all far right sectors in Latin America in the last years. You have an important far right political basis in Brazil with Bolsonaro and all those sectors. That's far right. Those are people that are against the rights of the people. Those are people that are aligned to the US interests. Those are people that are not about national interest. Those are people that are going about the poor people, that are against the possibility of the national development of the majority. So that's an important threat that we have in the region. And basically, the possibility of Venezuela to resist to this important aggression that we have so far is in this national conscience that, as I mentioned, it's in the civilian sectors, but also in the military sectors. And that's something that we need to be civilized and promote. The last thing that I want to mention is that maybe what I could ask for you, uh, our dear friends, is like two things. One of them is that we need to stay more communicated in order to guarantee the circulation of proper information, you know? Because when you see social networks and you see the whole international media, they can say anything about Venezuela. So if we strengthen our communication, you could be more informed and you could inform another people. So that's a key issue. There we have like the depth because we need to produce uh, um, information products, maybe like analyzed papers or another kind of products that you can have in English and you can share with your different comrades and allies in your job. So that's an important issue to be communicated between us in order to defeat the fake news. That's one thing. And also, by the way, to defeat the psychological warfare because they are trying to promote this international. What we are seeing is that they are trying to promote this idea that the military attack into Venezuela is so imminent that maybe at the international arena, most of the people start to promote like, well, it has to change. That could be worse. They have to. It's better that they change Maduro in order to doesn't have this kind of military situation. You know. So basically, I think that what they are trying to organize is this setting of the public opinion in order to most of the people are uh, willing to promote a political change in Venezuela. no matter if that is about to lose our sovereignty, our independence, and even our well-being, with the so-called argument that to save us, they are promoting the idea to to make things worse for Venezuelan people. Uh, and the second issue that I think it's important is that it will be great if you can promote any action of rejection against the US policies at this moment. I think that are quite important. Any declaration or statement from our networks, our movements, our grassroots organizations, our syndicates, our political organizations, I mean, from anywhere, any demonstration that can say that every people in the world is against this military threat from the US into Venezuela, I think that's quite important, you know, because it's also to try to change this this public opinion setting that they are trying to organize. We need to repel that. We need to promote an a political position against what the United States is trying to build right now. Because what they're playing is that you don't have information about what's going on in Venezuela. All that you have is that what the US want you to have, and that is trying to promote this idea that the best thing that could happen is a political change in Venezuela. So we need to promote an alternative statement. That's what I could say.